Bhagavan Shri Yogi Ramsuratkumar ki Jai. Sarvam Yogi Ramsuratkumar Arpanamastu. With deep gratitude, we have offered our Nama Sankirtan at the holy feet of Bhagwan. As we have been seeing different leelas of Bhagwan, which depict different dimensions of his divine life. Bhagwan sometimes would say, "Who is Yogi Ramsuratkumar? Where is he?" And then he would point to his head, to foot. "You think this is Yogi Ramsuratkumar? He is here and there and everywhere. There is no place where he is not. There is nothing he does not know. There is nothing that he cannot do. This beggar could make that huge mountain called Meru into a lump of clay, and a lump of clay into Mahameru. Such is the power of my Father. And there is no one else here in this body. It's only my Father." So one day in Sudama Veranda, Bhagwan was smoking, was completely absorbed in the tremendous work that he used to call Father's work, the cosmic work. The postman had come, he left a parcel, and then I put it before Bhagwan. Then Bhagwan stopped smoking, he took the parcel in his lap, he started to unravel the knot there. He was trying and trying, he seemed to struggle, and finally, with some irritation, he threw the parcel into my lap, saying, "Devaki, this beggar is not able to open it." Then I thought it was something very complicated. If he, the cosmic controller, as he sometimes, when nobody was around, would say to a few people, he was doing such a tremendous work at varied levels. I had seen him at work at a time at different levels. And here he was saying he was unable to open this simple knot. But then I thought, if he couldn't do it, it must be very complicated. So I started to chant his name, and then I just touched it, and I did something like this, and it came off. It came off so easily. And I was thinking, my God, how could he not do this? It's so simple. What a baby he is. And with this thought, I just looked up. And what happened was a tremendous experience. There was no Yogi Ramsuratkumar in front of me. There was no one, no form, with a green turban, the dirty clothes, and his style of devotee. In fact, there was no Sudama. There was nothing at all except a rush of beams of light, and they seemed to vibrate with life. It was a vibrant, living presence with the brilliance of 1,000 million suns. One could not witness it with the physical eyes. He played that Leela that day and gave this huge gift of grace to me. It was an experience beyond description. If I recall it even for a moment, I would be lost in it. Not only me, there are quite a few people who have witnessed this Nirguna Nirakar, the Vishwarupa of Bhagwan, his true being. He was no body, the form that we saw. I used to ask him, you and your father are one and the same. You say that you are the cosmic controller, that you run the whole cosmos, and there is no one else, nothing else, except you. And you have taken all these forms, and you are playing the roles of the creatures of the world. So why would you refer to yourself as beggar, this beggar? Then Bhagwan said, if this beggar said that this beggar is God, none other than God himself, people would throw stones at this beggar. People would be out to kill this beggar. We know some of those Sufi saints, when they said, "I am God," they were burnt alive. So he said, "Father, people see this beggar as a form. People see this beggar as a dirty beggar, a dirty sinner. So that suits me. This is the language I have to speak to those people. The language which they understand." So you can imagine what it was like living with this fire this column of fire that stood in Tiruvannamalai ages before. The supreme divinity. He was so unpredictable. You would never know what he would say next, what he would do next. From moment to moment, he lived in a divine spontaneity. There was no thinking or planning. I had never seen him sit and plan anything. Everything was spontaneous. He would straight away go into action, and that would be perfect. If he entered some work, it was always instant and total. And he would be completely absorbed in that work. One work at a time. He would say, "Oh, this beggar, you people are very clever," referring to ourselves. "You people can do many, many things at a time, but this beggar can do only one thing at a time." Because he would be totally absorbed in that. There would be no space for anything else. So it was always instant and total concentration on the work in hand, and it was instant and total withdrawal once the work was over. We should not even talk about it. So this divinity was living in Sannadi Street house. There is a certain anecdote that I enjoyed when I read it. There was a devotee who was staying with Bhagwan for a few days, and one day, morning, all of a sudden Bhagwan started to say, "This beggar has not seen Father face to face. Have you seen Father face to face?" The devotee was taken aback. He did not know what to say. He did not know what Bhagwan meant by it. And then a few minutes after, again Bhagwan repeated, "Oh, this beggar has not seen Father. Have you seen Father?" So this he repeated, this Leela, several times that day. He kept on asking the devotee if he had seen Father that he himself did not see. So one day passed and the devotee did not know how to handle it at all. He was a little baffled, and of course he had no answer, not knowing what Bhagwan meant by that. And the next day morning again, Bhagwan started, "Oh, this beggar has not seen Father. Have you seen Father?" So about 10 o'clock, he repeated quite a few times, and this devotee could no more take it. So he blurted. He said, "Swami, if you have not seen your Father, it is your problem. I don't know about you, but I have seen my Father. I have seen your Father face to face. I am with him right now. And the way he said so emphatically, it was like a retort to Bhagwan's Leela. Bhagwan burst into peals of laughter. He laughed and laughed and laughed for quite some time. And then said, "Oh, you have seen Father. This beggar has not seen Father." But then he stopped saying it further. Because he made the point, he brought out the whole Leela only to make this point to the devotee, and the devotee, the minute the devotee admitted, then he was driven to admit it openly, and Bhagwan had no more say in the matter. It was something I enjoyed while reading it. The kind of Leelas Bhagwan plays in order to drive home some truths. Bhagwan often said, how many of us could see him as that supreme being? And if we saw him as supreme being, we could not have moved with him the way we did. He brought out the Maya upon ourselves so that he could handle us and we could be at ease with him. Bhagwan would often say, if the supreme formless God does not assume any form, if he did not assume any form, like Rama and Krishna, how could Ramayana have come? Bhagavatam, how could these literatures have come? How could the sculptors sculpt the form of Rama, Krishna, Shiva, and rejoice in that? Give us such ananda by sculpting all those forms. How could the painters, what could the painters do if there was a formless, attributeless God alone? They could paint Rama, Krishna, Shiva blissfully. And again, the musicians, how much they sing on gods, the personal gods, how much they enjoy singing, how much we enjoy hearing them. And the poets, what could they write? What would be there to write on the formless, attributeless, the substratum? It's because it assumed forms, they could compose poems. So he went on saying that the personal God is no lesser God, but at the same time, it's a bliss. It is for the ananda of the devotees that these forms and leelas happen. He also said that is how we could chant the name, we could recall those leelas, and by doing so easily, we would be in constant remembrance of God. Otherwise, how could it happen? Who could grasp the formless, attributeless divinity? So, that Bhagwan, who often said, I am the cosmic controller, I run the whole cosmos, I alone exist. Now that Supreme God is here, right in front of us. It's not just an idol, it's a living force. It's a symbol of the attributeless, Parabrahman, and yet it can communicate to us. It can give us gifts of grace, gifts of blessing, the way we understand them. So we shall. Bhagwan also said there is a constant flow of grace from the personal and the impersonal God. Whatever you call it, there is a constant flow of grace. He would say the blessings are pouring from Father all the time, from all sides. You learn to receive it. He would sometimes say, people who complain, oh, there is no grace, my problems are not getting solved, no matter how much I appeal, how much I chant the name, nothing seems to work. He would say, they are like the owls. They close the eyes, even in broad daylight, and say, oh, there is only darkness, there is only darkness. They don't understand because they close their eyes, the owls. They close their eyes, they cannot see the light outside. Like that, when we close every door, every window of our room, no matter how much the wind is blowing outside, we cannot let it inside. So, chanting His name will open a window. If we go through the leelas of Bhagwan, no matter how worldly they sound, whether they have depth or not, it is still leelas of God, like we see, the very world is leela. Once he said, Devaki, don't sit on the edge of the chair and be lost. Sit comfortably in the chair and enjoy the Leela of God on the world stage. Now, how many of us can do that? So by chanting the name, by remembering His Leela, by doing puja to Him, by praying to Him, and remembering all the time we are only instruments in the hands of the Divine, that the Divine is activating us into thinking, talking, and doing, that the Divine is playing our roles. We are not doing anything. We don't exist at all, except as instruments in His hands. It is the one Divine in all of us, in all the creatures, the one Divine in the entire creation, the Divine that is present in a wriggling worm, in an ant, in an elephant, in a tree or plant, in the human beings, and in the subtle beings, the Devas, Rishis, and even the Trinity, and all those Mahatmas. It's one divinity which assumes the costumes of various creatures, activate them into thinking, talking, and doing. In short, it is the one divinity that plays all our roles. So we are only instruments in His hands. And this life is given to us, this body is given to us, this life is given to us only to remember Him. There is no other purpose for life. Constant remembrance of God is the only purpose of life. If people imagine there are other purposes, they are being misguided. So, we will have to remember the name, we'll have to remember the Leelas, we'll have to keep praying, and we have to run our whole life, everyday life, with the awareness that it's He who is playing our role. He is putting thoughts in our mind, words in our mouth, and actions through our body. So let's remember and pray to Him above all for constant remembrance of His name. And He is all-knowing, all-powerful, all-pervasive. There is nothing that He does not know. He very well knows what the world is suffering today. The great powers are suffering. People are not even coming out. The whole world has come to a standstill. All by an unseen little virus. Such is the power of His creation, that a creature, an unseen creature, can bring the whole world to such a state. Again, it is a divine power that's playing. Everything happens only by God's will, and whatever happens is necessary. But all the same, we have every right, we have freedom to ask for whatever we want. So we shall pray for His immediate divine intervention to free the entire humanity from the clutches of this dreadful virus.